Comedian, actor, musician, now author. Hollis Lashley brings us Gifts from the Heart. That's up next on Carib Nation. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome to Carib Nation. I'm Derrice Deane. For many years, most people know my guest as an all-round entertainer. He's often graced us with his poetry, which he has now formalized in an inspirational, positive book of essays, poems, and reflections. It's called Gifts from the Heart. Hollis Lashley, welcome to Carib Nation. And it is my pleasure, I think it's the first time I'm interviewing you, but we have talked many times over the years. And I have to say, I was a bit surprised at this new book, Gifts from the Heart, because many of us know you as performer, comedian, calypsonian, actor, and we always saw that funny side, the philosophical. Every now and then you'd wane philosophical, but I never knew that this depth existed. Where did this come from?
Well, first let me say thank you, Ms. Deane, for inviting me here. And it is interesting that, just as you said, many people know me as a humorist, making jokes, having a good time. And basically, that is only a part of who I am as everybody else who we see around us. In quiet times, I am a person who like to read. I read quite a lot. I study hard, and more importantly, I've always been interested in things spiritual. Unfortunately, that's not the side of us that we can portray openly at all times. But in my quiet moments, I take myself, my life, and my spiritual aspect very seriously. And over the years, my passion has been writing. So when I am not in public, making jokes and having a good time, I am home reading something or writing. And I'm very much influenced by Eastern philosophy, by a lot of the things that we would not necessarily read every day. But I do read voraciously. Wow. And I love poetry. I've always loved poetry. I've been writing since I've been a teenager. And over the years, I've collected a lot of my stuff, shared them in at times, and but this is just accumulation of what I've been doing at quiet times.
I see. So psychology, did this lead you to psychology, or well, of course, if you've been doing this all along, psychology didn't lead you to this, or is it?
Well, there are two passions I've had in my life, and I can't say exactly where that's come from. Psychology has been one of them. I remember even in elementary school picking up little books on psychology and just being curious as to what it is all about, and writing poetry in particular. So if I have to define where this has come from, this has been a part of who I am for all of my life. I have discarded a lot of the writings that I've done in the past, because as you grow and as you mature, you find your own voice. And my voice has been to the spiritual aspect, the immaterial understanding, beyond what goes beyond life, what has happened before life. I mean,
delving into that.
Yes, looking at religion and looking at spirituality more than just the narrow confines of our religious orientations.
Do you think that your upbringing, was any of this in your home? Did you see? I personally can say that I witnessed faith from my mother. I actually saw it in action, and for a teenager to see faith in action is like watching magic.
Right.
Because it's something that you can't touch, you can't feel, but you see this thing happen based on this belief and this journey that this person has taken. and it's mind-boggling,
Right.
which has created some curiosity myself.
Right.
But I wonder if either watching somebody in your family or hearing something or just observing the way your life was shaped
Well,
as a child.
one of the major influences in my life is my grandmother. Lisette is her name, and but she's dead now. But I didn't know how much she influenced me until she died, unfortunately. She taught me to read at an early age, and that is something for which I'll always be thankful. She spoke to me about things that I did not understand at the time. However, as I've grown and matured, her image and her presence is always with me.
Hence your wisdom.
Well, if it has come from anywhere, that has been a
Yeah.
major part
It's
of it.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Then too, you know, when, as you mentioned, spiritual things, and when you see faith in action, I believe that my grandmother is a protective force around me. Because there are situations in which I have been, and want it for something else greater than I do not think that I would have been here today to have this interview with you. And so I am convinced that there are spiritual parts of this universe that very many of us are not totally aware of. And that has built within me a faith and an understanding that transcends whatever circumstance may come about in my life.
Do you care to share any of those circumstances that give an example of what you were grasped from?
Well, as a matter of fact, that question could be answered by any one of the pieces in this book.
I recognize that
You see-
there were a number, for instance,
Let me just pick a piece here. Okay, living the wonderful life. I know you mentioned two particular pieces, but rather than looking for them, let me just, right, living the wonderful life. There's an influx of good, which I know is divine, and I open myself to all good, which is mine. My cup overflows now with the feast that's prepared. Abundance manifests. All God's bounty is shared. Universal supply, unvaried and maximum, is mine always to claim in its distribution. I completely accept all gifts coming from God. I thank you, Providence. Life is love's true reward. And this has come out of some kind of situation in which, you know, things didn't look at its best. But when you go inside to that secret place, then you can draw on forces that keeps you strong in the face of whatever circumstances look like. And these are the areas from which I draw to express some of these ideas that I have expressed in this book. Now, granted, it mightn't be a bestseller like one of those other novels, but I know that somewhere it is going to impact somebody's mind, it is going to impact somebody's mood, it is going to do something to lift somebody from their present circumstance.
well, what is interesting is, and that was what I found interesting, is that you seem to have touched on every emotion. You've touched on every situation. There are essays, poems, narratives, reflections. I mean, I particularly liked For My Children.
Okay.
The reason I like that is because most people, and I found it interesting when you say being a parent is easy if you're biologically prepared. And that is the easy part of it.
Exactly.
The difficult part is that fine rope that you have to walk.
Exactly.
That constant pull, that constant this, that, yes, no, good, bad. What you do may be respected, but it may, on the other side, be considered.
Exactly.
That was very poignant.
You know,
me.
and as I indicated, the love of a parent for a child is indeed something mysterious. I mean, you have someone dependent on you. And very many of us do not understand that as parents, we are also in a learning situation.
Yes.
And we ought not to allow all the pundits and all those who say they are experts in parenting, who may have no children of their own, to dictate how we how we raise our children, because there are principles. And if we are not courageous enough to be able to explore our own weaknesses in terms of child rearing, then we are just going to continue to perpetuate a society of weak people.
Exactly.
But it is an opportunity for us to, as parents, to learn, to prepare ourselves to be better human beings.
And it is about the willingness.
Yes.
To open oneself to learning.
Definitely.
And that takes me, I will come back when we're going to go for a short break, but I want to come back and talk about the older generation and the way they handled raising children, and the enlightened way that, or at least we think we're enlightened, the way that we have had to deal with our children of today.
Right.
We'll be back with more of Hollis Lashley and his book, Gifts from the Heart, on Carib Nation. I'm Derrice Deane. We'll be back after this short break.
This is Carib Nation Television, the source for news and information about the Caribbean and the diaspora. Seen locally in the Washington, D.C. area on MHZ Network, Saturdays at 1:30 p.m. and Wednesdays at 11:30 a.m. and on the World Wide Web at CaribNationTV.com. Carib Nation, the television for one people, one culture, one Caribbean, one nation.
Maryland, Oliver here, and guess what? I'm in love, puppy love. Puppy Love comes to the University of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., Sunday, October 24, 6 p.m.
For more information about Puppy Love, their telephone number is 240-462-5843, and their website is www.everybodysmag.com.
Puppy Love, we're going to make you laugh like a puppy.
Welcome back to Carib Nation. I'm Derrice Deane. My guest today is Hollis Lashley, as he's familiarly known, and the book is called Gifts from the Heart, a spiritual expose by Hollis. Hollis, let's go back to talking about For My Children and this whole experience of parenthood and what it means. Now, there are some people who will tell you today that they have a certain perspective on life because of the attitudes of their parents. Right. Some felt that they were too harsh. Some felt that their principles were outdated and that they needed to come into the new era. We, as a generation, I think at this time, are particularly challenged by the societal pressures placed upon our children. How do you think that generation handled, or where did they go for this spiritual guidance for this sort of thing?
Well, I think that very many of us allow ourselves to be confused. There are certain basic principles about parenting. And if we pay attention to the present President of the United States, we would learn a few things from him. You may call him old-fashioned. But still in the White House, he has the television off at a certain time in the night. His children are made to do homework at a certain time, etc., etc. These are fundamental principles that have come about for years in old societies, in new societies. There are basic principles. Who happen to be in charge? A parent. We have to set standards for our children and help them to understand that we are in charge, and these are the rules for now until you reach X amount of age when you can do what you want. It is as simple as that.
These, as someone said to me, these are gifts. Children are gifts given to us to take charge of for a time.
Right. And when we allow ourselves to be pressured by the modern day experts into being told how to express ourselves to our children, I find it, for want of a better word, I find it ridiculous. Parents are supposed to be in charge, and we are supposed to instill discipline, and when they are young enough, they would know who is in charge and who is not in charge. Unfortunately, very many of us do not understand some of these principles. We do not challenge ourselves to further understand how best to be parents, and so the slide will continue in society. But we are responsible.
At the end of the game.
Exactly.
Now, there's another one that you did. I should have marked the page, and that is one on integrity.
Oh, on integrity.
And that leads me to that, because integrity is one of those things that I think can only be taught by a parent in the home.
Exactly.
And these are a note on integrity.
A note on integrity.
Page 96.
96, okay. Well, again, too, I have been always fascinated by this question of integrity. And in my trying to capture this, I look back on friendships. I look back at some of the people that I knew in my life, some of the people who influenced me. And that is why I began it the way I did. My friend, you remind me of something that is solid and lasting, something like an old, large, weather-beaten oak tree, withstanding rain and storm, just being there, solid and lasting and constant. And this is contrasted to those friends we have who want to make us over into their own image. You know, but this is what integrity is about. I have learned so much from you. And among other things, you have taught me about integrity. You have helped me to see how much power there is in doing what you say you are going to do rather than doing what you feel you should do at the moment. You have shown me what power there is in doing according to your word rather than your feelings. And very many of us, in terms of our friendships, in terms of our ability to communicate with each other, we do not communicate with integrity. What we can get out of a situation, we are all gung-ho to get that. And I mean, point in you know, for example, I've written this book. There are people who I reach out to in terms of looking to get some assistance to help to push the book, but not everybody sees it in that way as being a help. We look at resources as though they're scarce in the universe, and therefore, if I help him, he's going to get ahead, and I'm not going to get ahead. As far as I'm concerned, that is not how it works.
One of your poems says that there's enough to go around. For
there
everyone.
are enough resources, and so I know for a fact that there are 360 degrees in a circle. And if 1 degree is not appreciative of the person in the center of the circle, there are 359 other degrees. So there are no closed doors as far as I'm concerned. And there are people who would reach out and who would grasp the messages that are contained in this book. There are no two ways about it. I've also been fortunate to experience that there are doors that are opening from people who I never expected to even understand or appreciate what this is all about. I go to Virginia quite often. I've done some interviews in Virginia. I have friends in Virginia who appreciate what I'm about and what the book is about. And let me clarify that. When I say what I'm about and what the book is about, I mean that I am saying that from a perspective of being humble enough to understand that the messages that are here are not my messages that I have couched, because they help me to understand reality, to understand spirituality. These are messages that come through me, but they are not of me. It has to come from a greater wisdom, because I too go back to this to read, to remind myself about some of these principles of spirituality that I am talking about in the book. It had to come from something much greater than I am.
And that takes me to one of your writings here with James Dillett Freeman from Unity. Unity is something I learned about again from my mother as a young child, and the power of that organization.
Yes.
The depth.
Yes.
Of that organization. Talk a little bit about your experience.
Well, Unity has been one of the paths through which I have trod that has put me on the journey that I am today. The tenets, the philosophy, the spirituality contained in Unity's teachings has influenced me greatly. When I went to Unity Village in Missouri to do a retreat I think it was a 2-week retreat. It has been one of the brightest experiences in my life, When I met James Dillard Freeman, a man whose work I have read, I mean religiously, his voice, I mean, the things that he writes about. Angels Sing Within Me, one of my favorite pieces, The Hilltop Heart, I Am There. When you read the work of this man, you know that this is someone who has been touched spiritually, who has been gifted with an insight way beyond reality. And so when I met him, I was thrilled.
I can imagine.
Unfortunately, I had the opportunity to write a piece that I dedicated to him. It's in the book for James Dillard Freeman, Words of a Free Man.
Right.
And I sent it to him. He acknowledged it before he died, and I was really thrilled to be in his company in Unity Village. Unity Village, to one of the places on earth that, I mean, you really sense and touch what spirituality is all about. Wow. You know, no closed doors.
Right.
I mean, the Rose Garden.
Open freedom.
I mean,
total freedom and appreciation for nature.
Yes, and the camaraderie with people of like minds. Sitting in that Rose Garden that was dedicated to the founder's wife. The name's
you have
but,
some of the photographs.
You know, but it was an amazing experience. Added to that, after I got in touch with Unity and its principles, I started to read Science of Mind. And that too has heavily influenced me, because basically what these messages are saying is that we are responsible for our spiritual growth. We are responsible for understanding what happens beyond the physical, and there are lots of information in the universe that we can avail ourselves of to be able to understand what is beyond the physical.
We stop for another break. We'll be right back after this short break. More with Hollis Lashley and his book. Welcome back to Carib Nation. I'm Derrice Deane. My guest is Hollis Lashley, and the book is titled Gifts from the Heart. In this segment, we're going to talk some more with Hollis about his life until to this point. He's given us some idea of his spiritual side, but we know him as an artist, a comedian, and we'll talk some more about that.
Yes,
Let's look into, as I said, I've been following you for I don't know how many years now you've been around.
Well, I've been around
it's about 25 or 30 years.
Yeah, I've been in this country about, right now it's about 35 years.
Yeah, so it's about 25 or 30 years since I first encountered your humor to begin with. I think that was the first thing that struck me. And then I got to know more about your music and your acting, etc. Talk a little bit about what some of those experiences meant to you. What have they done for you? And some of the opportunities you've had.
Okay, well, first let me say I grew up in a little place called Morva in Trinidad. And that is the kind of experience that has impacted me, and it will impact me until I die. I grew up at a time when there was pride in art. We had three youth groups in Mova, a little place of a few hundred people. We had 3 groups. And we used to compete against each other, the Times of Better Village and so on. So I grew up in music. We had the pan yard. I was in the pan yard. I learned to play pan when I was about 12, 13, 14, around that age. I was in theater. I wrote my first play. I was about 13 years. We had the Mova Community Center. So we sat down and we did creative things. We made our own light system. We acted. We danced. We wrote our own constitution. So it was, you know, those were the formative years that I got involved in theater. Later on, when I got a little older, I played pan in Port of Spain. I played pan in Mova. I acted with Derek Walcott in Bataille, 1966. Wow. We did some other plays with Derek Walcott. I did some work with Freddie Kissoon, King Kobo. I remember I did this part as an actor called Sugarhead, where I was a pan man. I learned I learned the tenor solo that up to today, if I go back, I remember it note for note.
Wow.
So again, this is how my life has been. I've been involved in the Public Services Association, Trinidad and Tobago. I had the opportunity to be the secretary of the center in Long Circular Road, organizing mass and sports. And so I have had a rich life culturally.
Cultural background.
And so when I came to this country, it was just a matter of just continuing that. I mean, one can ask the question, well, all right, what has it brought you? Where your big house and where your big set of money and so on. And I may not have that, but I'm going to tell you one thing. I am comfortable and satisfied with who I am and who I have been. I have taken a particular path in terms of expressing my life. And I understand that that expression is what I am about, not what I may have accumulated or what I may not have accumulated or anything like that. And so I am joy-filled. I'm happy. On stage, when I do whatever I do it from the basic spirit of who I am as a human being. So
that is where the humor comes from.
Yes. You know, so, you know, I do it from that perspective. And when we typecast people as being a this or that or the other, we are doing a vast disservice, because we as human beings are more than just one expression of who we are. We are all multifaceted people with talents and skills and opportunities to express ourselves in ways that very many of us may not even have the courage to do. But again, when you live your life from inside out, you live it with that passion, with that joy, and with that light that makes everything else just fall into place.
Perfect point on which to end. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And good luck with the book. Again, the book is available. We can go to your website at
You can go to hollislashley.com. You can go to Ex Libris.
As XLIBRIS.
Yes. Or, you know, just try to get in touch with me somehow and, you know.
Well, we'll get you at hollislashley.com.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And, you know, it has been a joy being interviewed by you, Ms. Deane, and thank you again very much, you and all the other people behind the scene who makes me look much better looking than I am in real life.
That's it for Carib Nation today. I'm Derrice Deane. Until next time.